Hello guys and welcome back. In this section we are going to cover the forms part in HTML. In the last section we have covered the tables part. So if you have not watched that video, then I will provide a link down in the description. You can go and check out from there. So we all are aware about what a form is and why we use a form. So basically a form is used to gather some information from the user and send it to server for further processing. So let us just quickly begin with the form section, as it is a bit of a lengthy topic. So whenever we want to use a form in HTML, we just simply have to use the form tag. So inside of the form element there are some important attributes which we must remember. So the very first attribute, and which is the most important one, is the action attribute. So what it does is it specifies a URL or an address to which the information which is being collected from the user is to be sent. So right now we are keeping it just empty. So the next attribute is the method attribute. So it basically sends a request to the server. So there are two types of method, or you can say request. One is the get request and the second one is the post request. Let us quickly understand what is the difference between both of them. So uh, whatever information or data which we send through the get request, basically it is being added along with the URL which we have specified in the action attribute. So you can now think that if our form is long enough, then it would be such a long URL. So if our form is short, then we can use the get method, and if our form is long enough, then you can use post method. Also, if our form contains some sensitive information such as the passwords, then we have to use the post method. Okay, now let us understand the get and post method in terms of effect on the database. If the request which we are sending to the server does not add or delete something from the database, then we can use a get request, and if it does add or delete something from the database, then we can use a post method. In our case we are going to use a post method. The next attribute is the name attribute. So it is a very simple attribute which is used to give name to our form. And also there is id attribute, as discussed earlier, which can be used with any element of the HTML. So let us give it an id of, say, form. Okay, so inside of the form, let us now discuss about the various form controls. So what are form controls? So form controls are basically the different types of user inputs which we collect. So they are mainly divided into four different categories. They are, say, the text category, the second one is the choice category, the third is the submit, and the last one is the file format. So we are going to discuss each one of them. So whenever we want to use any form control, or if we to collect information from the user, we simply just enter the input element, and you can here see this type. So it defines the type of form control which we want to use to gather our information. So in the first type of text control, the very first type is the text only. So what it does is it uh, takes a single line input from the user, and you can name it any, you can say first name, and let us just save it and see what actually happens. Okay, so here it is, and let me refresh it. Okay, so you can see that by default string has appeared here. Let me refresh it. Okay, so you can see we have specified an input field, but we don't know which data to enter in the field. So we can use a label tag, or you can say label element, to specify each of the fields or give a label to the field. So you can just say here first name and save it. Okay, so now you can see, and we can clearly see that this input field is specified for entering the first name from the user. There is a attribute which is used with label element, which is the for attribute. So what it does is it basically associates a label with a specific input. So in our case, this label is associated with the input which is named as first name. Okay, so whenever we want to specify any name or label, we are using the label element. The next type of form control under the text is the password type. So I am going to just copy paste this, and we are going to change certain data here. So you can, if you want to select certain text which appears more than one time, you can just select its first occurrence and just press Ctrl D. So it is going to cover the all occurrences in an HTML file. So here we are just changing it with password, and also the type is going to be password. And let us say that this input field specifies that we have to enter a password. Okay, so let us just write in a new line. Okay, so let us write something inside of the first name, say a random string ABCD. And now whenever I try to write something in the password field, then you can see this dot. So what it does is it prevents the data of the user, you can say password of the user, if someone is picking at us. Okay, so the next type inside of the text form control is the text area. Okay, so in text area we don't have to use this input element, we just have to say text area and give a tab. So let us change here, we can say address. And okay, so the attribute used inside the text area element are the rows, and the second one is the calls. So what they does is basically they determine the length and width of the text area as how many lines of text can be entered. So in our case, let us just use 5 rows and say 20 columns. Okay, there is also another attribute inside of the text area, which is the placeholder. Okay, so placeholder you can use with any of the above elements, okay, with this input types, and also with further, which we are going to discuss in this video. So let us say type your address here. Let us see what happens. Okay, so basically it is not showing the placeholder. mm, I think there is some problem here. Let us just simply write placeholder and say ABCD. Okay, so I don't know the reason, but somehow it is not showing the default placeholder. Okay, so the text form controls have been covered. The next type of form controls are the choice form controls. So basically there are three types of choice controls. The first is the radio button, second are the checkboxes, and the third is the drop down. So what is the difference between all these three? So what a radio button does is it allows the user to select only one choice from the given choices, whereas the checkboxes allows the user to have multiple choices, and also a user cannot select any of them. It means the user can leave it blank also. And the last one is the drop down. The drop down is a type of choice form control in which the user must, or you can say, select at least one choice from the given choices, or you can say it is the default choice which we tell the drop down list to have. So let us discuss that. So to have a radio button in our form, let us just give a label first. So we can say label for, and let's say gender. Okay, and let us say here gender. Okay, so input type we have to write here radio, and remember the number of choices which we are going to consider under this radio section are, they all must have a same name, or else the server is going to be confused as to which radio button is associated with which choice. So here we are associating it with the gender. So input type equals to radio, and we have written name equals to gender, and also we have to write here value, let us say male, and here we have to write a text which is visible to the user. And let me copy paste this and say female. Okay, so as you can see, okay, let me just write in the new line. Okay, so you can see we can either select male or female. So you can see that whenever I try to select both of them, it is not possible to select both at a time, so we can select only one at a time. The next type of form control under the choices is the checkboxes. So whenever we want to use a checkbox, it is similar to this radio button. The only difference is in the type. So let us say label for, we can say hobbies, and we can say here hobbies. We have to say input type equals to checkbox, and let us say this is for, let's say hobby only, so hobby. And we can write here some, okay, so let us keep it up to this and see what it does to the actual form. So you can see that here we have a checkbox. So let me just write it in the new line. Okay, so here this is our, the hobbies is our main heading, and this is a checkbox. So you can see that only by writing this much we can see a checkbox appears here. So just we have to write here something, say coding, and let me just copy paste this for the next few times. Okay, so let us say tracking, so you can say drawing or any hobby which you want to consider. Let us say yeah, singing. Okay, so these are the checkboxes, so you can either select, okay, so if you can leave it blank, or you can have more than one option, so you can select all at a time. So let me just check if there is a value attribute inside this checkbox. So this is the actual source code which you are going to get for the form which we have seen in the very starting. So where it went, radio button. Nope. So it has this checked attribute. So let us discuss about that. So what this check attribute does is it by default checks a certain option or a single option when the page loads. So we just have to write checked and set its value equals to checked. Okay. So let me just reload the page. And okay, we have forgotten to save this. And okay, I think there is a problem here. Mm, Let me just open it again. Okay, so you can see whenever the page loads, this field or this option is selected by default. You can do it with any of the one choices from the given choices. So let us say we want to by default select the drawing, and let me just reload. So you can see the drawing option is selected by default. The next type of form control under the choices is the drop down list, or you can say a select form control. So we have to simply write select and give a tab. Okay, so what it actually takes is where it went select. uh, okay, so we have to just give it a name for the element for which we are associating all these drop downs with, and then we have to specify each one of them with an option element. So let us do it. So select, and let us say name equals to city names. Okay, so let us just specify different options. So you can use the option element, and you have to just write here the value, and let's say we are writing here Ahmedabad, and let me just copy paste this here and copy paste this a few more time. Okay, so let us keep up to 3 and refresh it. Okay, so we have not given a label. So label for city, and let us say city. Okay, so you can see all the three options which are appearing here as we have mentioned here. Okay, so the next type of form controls are the submit form controls. Whenever we want to submit a form, so remember that a submit button is always used at the end of the form. Also you can have it anywhere in between, but there is a simple method that any button which you are going to use at the end of the form is going to function as a submit button or going to act as a submit button. So you basically just have to write input type equals to submit, and you can give it any name, say sub, and you have to specify a value for it. So the value inside this value attribute is going to be displayed on the button. So you just have to write any relevant text, and let me just refresh it. Okay, so you can see this submit button here. Okay, so now I think that we have discussed almost all the types. Okay, there is also another type which is the file type, which includes selecting any, or you can say gathering any audio, video or image format from the user. So what you can do is just input type equals to file. You can give names, any name, you can say file, and let us give it a label. A label say file uploads, and let us associate with our file input. Okay, so you can see we have not selected any file yet, so it by default says no file selected whenever you are going to click on browse. So it is going to open up all the files and folders available on your device. So I think we have discussed all the types of form controls. uh, yes, we have control all the type of form controls. So here now if we want to just group together a certain type of input field, so we can do it with the help of field set element. So let us see this form. So you can see this all the data which I have written here: first name, last name, email, password, contact number, and date of birth. Okay, so we have forgotten here this date of birth. Okay, we will cover it in just a minute. So we can combine all the similar type of input fields, or you can say the all the fields corresponds to personal information into a common group with the help of a field set attribute, field set element. So let us first discuss about the date element. So let us give it a label for date and say date. You just have to write input type equals to date, and you can give it any name, or it must associate with the with that provided in the label. Okay, so let me just reload. Okay, so you can see this date attribute, date functionality here, and you can select any date you want. Okay, so now let us combine all this input field into a common group with the help of field set. So I'm going to just select all this, and I'm going to use a field set element. Okay, the very first element after writing the field set element is the legend, which is going to provide the title for our group. So we can say legend, any name you can say, dummy name, and then we have to just copy paste all of this and just refresh it. So okay, you can see here that all these input fields are combined together and they're a common group which we named here dummy name. So let us just highlight our legend. Okay, so now that we have discussed all the different types of input, uh, you can say input types and the form controls, so here's a short assignment for you. Okay, so I think we have discussed here, we have forgot to discuss here an input type which is the email type. So it's same as all of the above, you just have to replace this type with the email type, and what it does is it prevents the user from entering any random string. It checks for some by default validation. So that's all for this video, and here's the assignment for you. So you have to design this form on your own, and if you want any help, then I will provide the link of the source code in the description. You can compare your code with that, and also if you are having any problem or any doubt, then you can ask me in the comment section. Okay, so till then, if you have not watched other playlist on our channel, then do check it out if you want to learn any other programming languages. So in the next video we are going to cover the different types of markups and iframes. So that's all for this video. Till then, thank you.